a WikiVidi documentaries production. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Enjoy. Aretha Franklin. Aretha Louise Franklin was an American singer, songwriter, civil rights activist, actress, and pianist. Franklin began her career as a child singing gospel at New Bethel Baptist Church in Detroit, Michigan, where her father C.L. Franklin was minister. At age 18, she embarked on a secular career recording for Columbia Records. However, she achieved only modest success. Franklin found commercial success and acclaim after signing with Atlantic Records in 1966. Hit songs such as Respect, Chain of Fools, Think, A Natural Woman, I Never Loved a Man, and I Say a Little Prayer propelled Franklin past her musical peers. By the end of the 1960s, Aretha Franklin had come to be known as the Queen of Soul. She continued to record acclaimed albums such as I Never Loved a Man the Way I Love You, Lady Soul, Spirit in the Dark, Young, Gifted, and Black, Amazing Grace, and Sparkle before experiencing problems with her record company. Franklin left Atlantic in 1979 and signed with Arista Records. She appeared in the 1980 film The Blues Brothers before releasing the successful albums Jump to It, Who's Zoom and Who? And Aretha on the Arista label. In 1998, Franklin returned to the top 40 with the Lauryn Hill-produced song, A Rose Is Still a Rose, later issuing the album of the same name, which went gold. That same year, Franklin earned international acclaim for her performance of Nessun Dorma at the Grammy Awards, filling in at the last minute for Luciano Pavarotti, who had cancelled after the show had already begun. In 2015, she paid tribute to singer-songwriter and honorary Carole King by singing A Natural Woman at the Kennedy Center Honors. Franklin recorded 112 charted singles on Billboard, including 77 Hot 100 entries, 17 Top 10 Pop singles, 100 R&B entries, and 20 number 1 R&B singles, becoming the most charted female artist in history. Franklin's other well-known hits include Rock Steady, Call Me, Ain't No Way, Don't Play That Song, Spanish Harlem, Daydreaming, Until You Come Back to Me, Something He Can Feel, Jump to It, Freeway of Love, Who's Zoom and Who, and I Knew You Were Waiting. She won 18 Grammy Awards, including the first 8 awards given for Best Female R&B Vocal Performance from 1968 through to 1975. And she is one of the best-selling musical artists of all time, having sold more than 75 million records worldwide. Franklin received numerous honors throughout her career, including a 1987 induction into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame as the first female performer to be inducted, the National Medal of Arts, and the Presidential Medal of Freedom. She was inducted to the UK Music Hall of Fame in 2005 and to the Gospel Music Hall of Fame in 2012. Franklin is listed in 2 all-time lists by Rolling Stone magazine, including the 100 Greatest Artists of All Time and the 100 Greatest Singers of All Time. In 2008, she was ranked by Rolling Stone as the number 1 Greatest Singer of All Time. Early life. Aretha Louise Franklin was born March 25, 1942 to Barbara and Clarence LaVaughn, C.L. Franklin. She was delivered at her family's home located at 406 Lucy Avenue, Memphis, Tennessee. Her father was a Baptist minister and circuit preacher originally from Shelby, Mississippi. Her mother was an accomplished piano player and vocalist. Both Mr. and Mrs. Franklin had children from prior relationships in addition to the 4 children they had together. When Aretha was 2, the family relocated to Buffalo, New York. By the time Aretha turned 5, C.L. Franklin had permanently relocated the family to Detroit, where he took over the pastorship of the New Bethel Baptist Church. The Franklins had a troubled marriage due to Mr. Franklin's infidelities, and they separated in 1948. At that time, Barbara Franklin returned to Buffalo with Aretha's half-brother, Vaughn. After the separation, Aretha recalled seeing her mother in Buffalo during the summer. and Barbara Franklin frequently visited her children in Detroit. Aretha's mother died of a heart attack on March 7, 1952, before Aretha's 10th birthday. Several women, including Aretha's grandmother, Rachel, and Mahalia Jackson, took turns helping with the children at the Franklin home. During this time, Aretha learned how to play piano by ear. She also attended public school in Detroit, going through her freshman year at Northern High School, but dropping out during her sophomore year. Aretha's father's emotionally driven sermons resulted in his being known as the man with the $1 million voice. He earned thousands of dollars for sermons in various churches across the country. His celebrity status led to his home being visited by various celebrities. Among the visitors were gospel musicians Clara Ward, James Cleveland, and early Caravans members Albertina Walker and Inez Andrews. Martin Luther King Jr., Jackie Wilson and Sam Cooke all became friends of C.L. Franklin, as well. Singer Clara Ward was romantically involved with Aretha's father, though she preferred to view them strictly as friends. Ward also served as a role model to the young Aretha. Beginnings, 1952-1960. Just after her mother's death, Franklin began singing solos at New Bethel, debuting with the hymn, Jesus, Be a Fence Around Me. When Franklin was 12, her father began managing her. He would bring her on the road with him during his so-called gospel caravan tours for her to perform in various churches. He also helped Franklin sign her first recording deal with WikiVidi Records. Recording equipment was installed inside New Bethel Baptist Church and 9 tracks were recorded. Franklin was featured on vocals and piano. In 1956, WikiVidi released Franklin's first single, Never Grow Old, backed with You Grow Closer. Precious Lord, backed with Precious Lord, followed in 1959. These 4 tracks, with the addition of There Is a Fountain Filled with Blood, were released on side 1 of the 1956 album, Spirituals. This was reissued by Battle Records in 1962 under the same title. In 1965, Checker Records released Songs of Faith, featuring the 5 tracks from the 1956 Spirituals album, with the addition of 4 previously unreleased recordings. During this time, Franklin would occasionally travel with the Soul Stirrers. According to music producer Quincy Jones, while Franklin was still young, Dinah Washington let him know Aretha was the next one. In 1958, Franklin and her father traveled to California, where she met singer Sam Cooke. At the age of 16, Franklin went on tour with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and she would ultimately sing at his funeral in 1968. As a young gospel singer, Franklin spent summers on the gospel circuit in Chicago and stayed with Mavis Staples' family. After turning 18, Franklin confided to her father that she aspired to follow Sam Cooke in recording pop music and moved to New York. Serving as her manager, C.L. Franklin agreed to the move and helped to produce a 2-song demo that soon was brought to the attention of Columbia Records, who agreed to sign her in 1960. Franklin was signed as a 5% artist. During this period, Franklin would be coached by choreographer Cholly Atkins to prepare for her pop performances. Before signing with Columbia, Sam Cooke tried to persuade Franklin's father to sign her with his label, RCA, but his request was denied. Record label owner Berry Gordy was also looking to sign Franklin and her elder sister Irma to his Tamala label. However, C.L. Franklin felt the label was not yet established enough, and he turned Gordy down. Franklin's first Columbia single, Today I Sing the Blues, was issued in September 1960 and later reached the top 10 of the Hot Rhythm and Blues Sellers chart. Columbia, 1961-1966. In January 1961, Columbia issued Franklin's first secular album, Aretha, with the Ray Bryant Combo. The album featured her first single to chart the Billboard Hot 100, Won't Be Long, which also peaked at number 7 on the R&B Beat chart. Mostly produced by Clyde Otis, Franklin's Columbia recordings saw her performing in diverse genres such as standards, vocal jazz, blues, doo-wop and rhythm and blues. Before the year was out, Franklin scored her first top 40 single with her rendition of the standard, Rockabye Your Baby with a Dixie melody, which also included the R&B hit, Operation Heartbreak, on its B-side. Rockabye became her first international hit, reaching the top 40 in Australia and Canada. By the end of 1961, Franklin was named as a new star female vocalist in Downbeat magazine. In 1962, Columbia issued 2 more albums, the electrifying Aretha Franklin and the tender, the moving, the swinging Aretha Franklin, the latter of which reached number 69 on the Billboard chart. In the 1960s, during a performance at the Regal Theatre, WVON radio personality Purvis Spann announced that Franklin should be crowned the Queen of Soul. By 1964, Franklin began recording more pop music, reaching the top 10 on the R&B chart with the ballad "Runnin' Out of Fools" in early 1965. She had 2 R&B charted singles in 1965 and 1966 with the songs "One Step Ahead" and "Cry Like a Baby," while also reaching the easy listening charts with the ballads "You Made Me Love You" and "I'm Losing You." By the mid-1960s, Franklin was netting $100,000 from countless performances in nightclubs and theaters. Also during that period, she appeared on rock and roll shows such as Hollywood A Go-Go and Shindig. However, she struggled with commercial success while at Columbia. Label executive John H. Hammond later said he felt Columbia did not understand Franklin's early gospel background and failed to bring that aspect out further during her period there. Atlantic, 1967-1979. In November 1966, Franklin's Columbia recording contract expired and she chose to move to Atlantic Records. In January 1967, she traveled to Muscle Shoals, Alabama, to record at Fame Studios and recorded the song "I Never Loved a Man," backed by the Muscle Shoals rhythm section. Franklin only spent 1 day recording at Fame, as an altercation broke out between her manager and husband Ted White, studio owner Rick Hall, and a horn player, and sessions were abandoned. The song was released the following month and reached number 1 on the R&B chart, while also peaking at number 9 on the Billboard Hot 100, giving Franklin her first top 10 pop single. The song's B-side, "Do Right Woman, Do Right Man," reached the R&B top 40, peaking at number 37. In April, Atlantic issued her frenetic version of Otis Redding's "Respect," which reached number 1 on both the R&B and pop charts. "Respect" became her signature song and was later hailed as a civil rights and feminist anthem. Franklin's debut Atlantic album, "I Never Loved a Man the Way I Love You," also became commercially successful, later going gold. Franklin scored 2 more top 10 singles in 1967, including "Baby I Love You" and "A Natural Woman." Her rapport with producer Jerry Wexler helped in the creation of the majority of Franklin's peak recordings with Atlantic. In 1968, she issued the top-selling albums Lady Soul and Aretha Now, which included some of Franklin's most popular hit singles, including "Chain of Fools," "Ain't No Way," "Think," and "I Say a Little Prayer." That February, Franklin earned the first 2 of her Grammys, including the debut category for Best Female R&B Vocal Performance. On February 16, Franklin was honored with a day named for her and was greeted by longtime friend Martin Luther King Jr., who gave her the SCLC Drumbeat Award for Musicians 2 months before his death. Franklin toured outside the U.S. for the first time in May, including an appearance at the Concertgebouw, Amsterdam, where she played to a near-hysterical audience who covered the stage with flower petals. She appeared on the cover of Time magazine in June. Franklin's success expanded during the early 1970s, during which she recorded the multi-week R&B number 1, "Don't Play That Song," as well as the top 10 singles, "Spanish Harlem," "Rock Steady," and "Daydreaming." Some of these releases were from the acclaimed albums Spirit in the Dark and Young, Gifted and Black. She returned to gospel music in a 2-night live church recording, with the album "Amazing Grace," in which she reinterpreted standards such as Mahalia Jackson's "How I Got Over." "Amazing Grace" sold more than 2 million copies. In 1971, Franklin became the first R&B performer to headline Fillmore West, later that year releasing the live album Aretha Live at Fillmore West. Franklin's career began to experience problems while recording the album "Hey Now Hey," which featured production from Quincy Jones. Despite the success of the single, "Angel," the album bombed upon its release in 1973. Franklin continued having R&B success with songs such as Until You Come Back to Me and I'm in Love, but by 1975 her albums and songs were no longer top sellers. After Jerry Wexler left Atlantic for Warner Brothers Records in 1976, Franklin worked on the soundtrack to the film Sparkle with Curtis Mayfield. The album yielded Franklin's final top 40 hit of the decade, Something He Can Feel, which also peaked at number 1 on the R&B chart. Franklin's follow-up albums were Atlantic, including Sweet Passion, Almighty Fire, and La Diva, bombed on the charts, and in 1979 Franklin left the company. Arista, 1980-2007. In 1980, after leaving Atlantic Records, Franklin signed with Clive Davis Arista Records and that same year gave a command performance at London's Royal Albert Hall in front of Queen Elizabeth. Franklin also had an acclaimed guest role as a waitress in the 1980 comedy musical The Blues Brothers. Franklin's first Arista album, Aretha, featured the number 3 R&B hit, United Together, and her Grammy-nominated cover of Redding's I Can't Turn You Loose. The follow-up, 1981's Love All the Hurt Away, included her famed duet of the title track with George Benson, while the album also included her Grammy-winning cover of Sam and Dave's Hold On, I'm Comin'. Franklin achieved a gold record, for the first time in 7 years, with the 1982 album Jump to It. The album's title track was her first top 40 single on the pop charts in 6 years. The following year, she released Get It Right, produced by Luther Vandross. In 1985, inspired by a desire to have a younger sound in her music, Who's Zoom and Who became her first Arista album to be certified platinum. The album sold well over 1 million copies thanks to the hits Freeway of Love, the title track, and Another Night. The next year's Aretha album nearly matched this success with the hit singles Jumpin' Jack Flash, Jimmy Lee, and I Knew You Were Waiting for Me, her international number 1 duet with George Michael. During that period, Franklin provided vocals to the theme songs of the TV shows A Different World and Together. In 1987, she issued her third gospel album, One Lord, One Faith, One Baptism, which was recorded at her late father's New Bethel Church, followed by Through the Storm in 1989. The same year, Franklin performed America the Beautiful at WWE's WrestleMania 3, the company's third annual entertainment spectacular, in her home state of Michigan. Franklin's 1991 album, What You See Is What You Sweat, flopped on the charts. She returned to the charts in 1993 with the dance song A Deeper Love, and returned to the top 40 with the song Willing to Forgive in 1994. Franklin's final top 40 single was 1998's A Rose Is Still a Rose. The album of the same name was released after the single. It sold in excess of 500,000 copies, earning a gold album. That same year, Franklin received global praise after her 1998 Grammy Awards performance. She had initially been asked to come and perform in honor of the 1980 The Blues Brothers film in which she appeared with Dan Aykroyd and John Belushi. That evening after the show had already begun, Luciano Pavarotti himself contacted show producers and said he was too ill to perform the opera aria, Nessun Dorma, as planned. The show's producers were desperate to fill the time slot, and approached Franklin with their dilemma. She was a friend of Pavarotti, and had sung the selection 2 nights prior at the annual Music Airs event. She asked to hear Pavarotti's rehearsal recording, and after listening, agreed that she could sing it in the tenor range that the orchestra was prepared to play in. Over 1 billion people worldwide saw the performance, and she received an immediate standing ovation. She would go on to record the selection, and perform it live several more times in the years to come. The last time being in Philadelphia for Pope Francis at the World Meeting of Families in September 2015. A small boy was so touched by her performance that he came onto the stage and embraced her while Franklin was still singing. Her final Arista album, So Damn Happy, was released in 2003 and featured the Grammy-winning song, Wonderful. In 2004, Franklin announced that she was leaving Arista after more than 20 years with the label. To complete her Arista obligations, Franklin issued the duets compilation album Jewels in the Crown, all-star duets with the Queen in 2007. The following year, she issued the holiday album This Christmas, Aretha, on DMI Records. Later years, 2008, 2018. Franklin performed The Star-Spangled Banner with Aaron Neville and Dr. John for Super Bowl 40, held in her hometown of Detroit in February 2006. She later made international headlines for performing My Country, 'Tis of Thee at President Barack Obama's inaugural ceremony, with her church hat becoming a popular topic online. In 2010, Franklin accepted an honorary degree from Yale University. In 2011, under her own label, Aretha's Records, she issued the album Aretha, A Woman Falling Out of Love. In 2014, Franklin was signed under RCA Records, controller of the Arista catalog and a sister label to Columbia via Sony Music Entertainment, and worked with Clive Davis. An album was planned with producers Babyface and Danger Mouse. On September 29, 2014, Franklin performed to a standing ovation, with Cissy Houston as backup. A compilation of Adele's Rolling in the Deep and Ain't No Mountain High Enough on The Late Show with David Letterman. Franklin's cover of Rolling in the Deep was featured among 9 other songs in her first RCA release, Aretha Franklin Sings the Great Diva Classics, released in October 2014. In doing so, she became the first woman to have 100 songs on Billboard's Hot R&B/Hip Hop Songs chart, with the success of her cover of Adele's Rolling in the Deep, which debuted at number 47 on the chart. In December 2015, Franklin gave an acclaimed performance of A Natural Woman at the 2015 Kennedy Center Honors during the section for Honoré Carole King, who co-wrote the song. During the bridge of the song, Franklin dropped her fur coat to the stage, for which the audience rewarded her with a mid-performance standing ovation. She returned to Detroit's Ford Field on Thanksgiving Day 2016 to once again perform the national anthem before the game between the Minnesota Vikings and Detroit Lions. Seated behind the piano, wearing a black fur coat and Lions stocking cap, Franklin gave a rendition of The Star-Spangled Banner that lasted more than 4 minutes and featured a host of improvisations. Franklin released the album A Brand New Me in November 2017 with the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra, which uses archived recordings from Franklin. It peaked at number 5 on the Billboard Top Classical Albums chart before her death and rose to number 2 after her death. Brought to you by WikiVidi Documentaries. Would you like to know more?